Hello, you beautiful beings. Welcome to another Uncut video. These have become such a source of joy for me. Thank you for watching. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of my best and worst decisions through the lens of human design authority. I am a generator with emotional authority. I'm a 5-2 profile generator with emotional authority. There's about 50-50 odds that you have emotional authority too, and right below the video I'm going to link a calculator where you can find out your authority. Now, you may have sacral authority, you may have splenic authority, but many of us have emotional authority, which basically means that we are meant to ride our emotional wave and make decisions when we are in a calm state. Never making decisions on a high, never making decisions in stress, which I think is, for me, that's the hardest thing, because when a problem presents, I just so badly, like, every fiber of my being is like, solve it now. Like, it can be really hard to sleep on unresolved problems, for example. But anyway, emotional authority individuals are really meant to take time to make decisions and sort of tune in at multiple points over time. So as an emotional generator, my strategy is to respond. And so I get this, they call it like a sacral response, but basically, like, I get this like gut feeling of yes or no whenever I'm presented with a decision or an option. And my best decisions are made by tuning in over a period of time, multiple times, and feeling that sort of yes or no and trusting that. So I want to talk about 3 examples from my life that represent some of my best and worst decisions as an emotional generator. Now, all of these are before I knew anything about my human design. So the first is one of my best decisions. And it's interesting because human design talks all about the deconditioning process. And my best example that came to mind, like, right away is before I was conditioned. At the time, I was only 2 or 3 years old, and here's what happened. So I have an older sister. I love her so much. And my parents enrolled her in gymnastics, and my mom brought her to gymnastics class, and I was sitting with my mom in the stands, like, sort of watching my sister on the balance beam and stuff, and suddenly I got a strong gut instinct, like, you are meant to do this. And it was the first class, and somehow I knew, don't bring it up, like, don't say anything right away. Now, I was also a very quiet kid. I actually didn't really start speaking at all until I was about like 15 years old, like a freshman in high school. So definitely not until I was like a preteen, I didn't really speak. Anyway, so yeah, but I had this feeling, and I was like, okay, if you feel this way again next week, maybe say something. I knew it was expensive, like, I knew that, I could sense that, or it was like a big investment. And so I wanted to sleep on it a little bit and think, should I really ask? Also, all the girls were like at least kindergarten age, and I was kind of like a baby. Like, I was kind of still like really young, and I was aware that I was like, there was no very little one like out there. So, but nevertheless, like, the next week again, I went and I had like the feeling again, just strong feeling like I'm meant to do this. And again, I felt the feeling really strong, and the whole time I just watched my sister, and I just dreamed like of doing the gymnastics too. And I still didn't say anything. The next week, I remember we were all driving up together, and we stopped at McDonald's, which was a big treat. The gymnastics class was also far away from home, so that made it even harder to ask. Yeah, it was like over a half-an-hour drive, which seems like a lot when you're a tiny child. And I remember like opening my Happy Meal, and I just remember thinking, today's the day, it's my lucky day, like, hamburger Happy Meal, like, I'm gonna ask. Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills. And so in the stands that day, I asked my mom, I said, Mom, can I do this too? And she was like, I don't know, you know, because there was no little kids class, like for kids that small. But she talked to the coach, and the coach said, well, if she can keep up with the older girls, then sure. And you guys, that gymnastics was my first love. Gymnastics was maybe my greatest love of my life. I reached a point where I became advanced to the point that there were no more classes for me, and I either had to choose to move to Texas to continue my gymnastics or stay in Michigan with my family. And at that point, I had to stop. I didn't have to, but that seemed like the right thing. And so I stopped gymnastics, and I loved it so much that I went through true and genuine grief. I was like 9 years old for like 2 to 3 years. Now, I don't regret any bit of this, but that's my example of emotional authority that was correct. And it was, like I said, for me, it was like scary to ask, because like I had every reason to believe that I couldn't do it, right? There was like no little girls in the class and I knew it was expensive and all of this kind of stuff. But I tuned in using my sacral authority multiple times, and it was a yes, like 3 weeks in a row. And so then I asked, and it became a source of so much joy for me and so much satisfaction. So that's an example of yes for emotional authority. And I think it only happened because I was a kid. Because if I would have been older and understood more what was involved, especially like I eventually advanced like above my sister, so then it was like multiple different classes and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I don't know, like I'm just so glad I followed my instincts and that I had the courage to ask. Now I want to share one of my worst. I became more mentally focused. I think this happens to a lot of us, but as I got older, I became more mentally focused. And I was even in like advanced studies programs, special programs for the gifted and talented of the mind. And I became so analytical. I was even like literally in classes of how to analyze stuff and things like that. And I became so mentally focused. And this really took me away from myself for a long time. Okay. So I decided to enroll in Peace Corps Masters International, which is a way of earning a master's degree where you do all your regular master's coursework. You can do this in a variety of subjects. And then for the research component, you serve as a Peace Corps volunteer and do your research in conjunction with the Peace Corps. And even the whole decision to do this, if I would have understood emotional authority, I never would have done in the first place. More on that in a moment. But I guess like just based on my training up until that point, I was like the ideal candidate for this program. And there was a year-long interview process before being assigned to a place. And the whole time, my instincts were telling me, like they always asked, like, I had this idea of what it meant to be a good Peace Corps volunteer. And I'd like read all these articles and stuff like that. And it said like, just go wherever you're assigned. Just be totally open. Say you'll go anywhere. Say you'll do anything. That's what good, devoted Peace Corps volunteers do. So the whole time during the interviews, I was like, I'll go anywhere. I'll do anything. And I can distinctly remember moments, even then, my sacral authority was like screaming no. Like, tell them where you want to go. Like, it's stuff that I never did. I was just like, send me anywhere. And at that point, I'd already lived in Africa, in Ghana for a while, and done some very interesting work there in education and this and that. And so they kind of knew that. And I was like, yeah, they'll probably send me back to Africa. I mean, there's a lot of sites in Africa, this and that. I remember the day that I got my assignment, and it was for Benin, which is close to Nigeria. It's a small country in West Africa, about the size of Philadelphia, actually. or not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Anyway, I didn't just have a bad feeling. Like, I had the type of feeling that you would get if you had a call, you suddenly got a call and found out that one of your immediate family members had died unexpectedly. I mean, I just had a terrible feeling right away. And every fiber of my instinct was like, decline the offer, don't go. But I had no evidence as to why. Like, everything logical was like, you know, I had a decent time in Ghana. I mean, it wasn't bad. So it was like, okay, it's right next to Ghana, like probably basically the same thing. You know, go where you're assigned, serve, don't have preferences. That's what it means to be a good volunteer, and like all this stuff. And also, like, my advisor for my graduate committee she was like 60 at the time, but she had previously served herself in the Peace Corps Masters International Program in Benin. So I knew like she would be really, really happy that I was assigned there. And I knew that I wanted to make her happy. So I ignored the feeling. Oh my God. Which, that alone, like ignoring, first of all, it did not go away. It was not like just a single moment of a bad feeling. Like with emotional authority, you do tune in, and of course I did, because I probably found out that I was assigned to Benin, I think I found out in February, and like the date of departure was the end of June. This feeling nearly killed me. It wasn't even, I was gonna say it was only 2 weeks. It was maybe 2 weeks later, I lost my period. And that had never happened to me before, but that's how much stress I was under. My body started shutting down immediately. And the feeling just grew, and the feeling just grew, and the feeling just grew. And I tried to I started running, I remember, anything to try to just deal with the stress. And then I would read all these articles online, and the articles are like, oh yeah, everyone feels this way. Like before their Peace Corps assignment, everybody, it's normal. I was like, is it normal to experience stress before you leave and stuff? And they were like, oh, it's normal. And so I used my mind to try to talk myself out of the feeling. Well, anyway, there's no way, and here's the thing about authority and human design, there's no way a lot of times for your mind to understand, your body's able to sense things and know things that the mind does not know. And my body sensed danger and I ignored it a lot. And there's no way I could have known, no one could have known how much danger I was in, logically. But essentially, I went to Benin. Immediately I started getting sick. Immediately I started having cardiac problems. I know now this was anaphylaxis, but at the time it wasn't clear what was going on. And typically if a volunteer gets sick, it's a parasite or Giardia or this or that. But basically there was only about 8 or 9 foods that were available in the small villages. And I know now that I am severely, life-threateningly allergic to all of them. And that is exactly what it felt like. Every time that I ate food, I would sort of start to kind of black out my vision and everything would start spinning. But at the same time, when you get allergic reactions, it causes your blood sugar to drop and you actually feel really, really hungry. And so I was constantly hungry, and I can't even describe the kind of craziness. It was maddening. I had been an A student, an A+ student pretty much my entire life. I could not read. I could not read. I could not write. And I was trying to learn another language. And eventually I did die. And I went into a coma, and then I was hospitalized for a month in Benin, and they could not figure out what was wrong. They noticed abnormalities and things like that in my blood work, as you do, especially a severely distressed liver which continues to be the main problem when I'm exposed to serious allergens in the air and in food. And they medically evacuated me to the University of Michigan Hospital. And I was treated there for several months. My immune system has never recovered. It's likely that I was exposed to a particular type of pollen there, which made me susceptible to a rare disease called lipid transfer protein allergy. However, it's so rare that no one has been diagnosed yet. If someone is, it could be me. No one has been diagnosed yet in the United States or Canada. But other people have in Europe and in Africa. But anyway, I had friends who were sent to like Russia or snowy places, and that could have been me, and I could have been fine and had an amazing experience. And instead, it was the worst experience of my life, but it was not even my life because I died and then I became born anew. Like I have no relation almost to the person that I was before, because when I went into my coma, I lost my whole memory, and I had an experience. Unfortunately, I don't remember the details of being on the other side, but it changed me so profoundly that that was the end of me. And when I came back, like my mom and my sister especially, they went through the full grief process as if someone had died, because I was dead to them, because I had changed so much. I feel really, really bad for that. But at the time, I didn't really remember them, and I just didn't have any of the same interests and stuff like that. But all this just to say, all that could have been avoided if I just trusted that bad feeling. So that's a clear example of like getting a no, and proceeding anyway. So I mean, I've seen people do this like with jobs, like with relationships, and I've done this before with other things in my life too, but that's just a strong example I felt like I should share with you guys. Now I have another example, and this is where, so when it comes to no's like that, I'm only 1 year into my deconditioning process, but like I've gotten better at recognizing and listening to those. It's still hard because I love people and I don't like to disappoint people. And so I think like when I look back on that decision, I would have felt like if I said no, like it was mainly my graduate advisor, because I knew she was so happy that I was assigned to the same country as her. I mean, what are the odds? But also just like everyone who had written me letters of recommendation and like all of this, I just wanted to be the best, like the best volunteer. And that meant go where you're called and do the work and don't complain. And I mean, it was a disaster. Oh my gosh, like, okay, I'm just being honest. I mean, it was really, really bad. So, okay, so anyway, so I have another example, and this is the one where most of my work is being done now, okay? And this is mixed signals. And so if you have emotional authority and you don't have, I just provided an example of having clear sacral, yes, 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 over time, and then clear sacral, no, 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 over time. But what about when you have no sacral response? So this is an example where this actually has to do with graduate school itself. So when I decided to go to grad school, that was not I think it was because I wasn't quite clear on what I wanted to do with my life. And I was just like, I kept being told by professors, like, you are so smart. Like you were already writing, you're already researching like a graduate student, you must enroll in grad school. And so I told myself, if you get funding in a program, then go, because it's free anyway, why not? And so I had two fields of study that I was like really interested in. So I eventually was in international nonprofit development and administration at the University of Wyoming. That's what I chose. But it wasn't like, so that, yeah, so I eventually chose that. But I was also interested in a completely other area, and like very, very interested. And that was student affairs administration. And sometimes like my heart still longs like desperately for that career path, even though I'm in a totally different field now. But so I was planning to make my decision based on where I got funding. And I ended up getting funding at multiple different international programs, including the School for International Studies, which is like I think that's what it's called. It's a very prestigious program, and multiple student affairs programs. And I can just remember, God bless him, like my boyfriend at the time, just with the mind again, the mind, like I would sit there in the evening time, sit there with him in my bedroom and just talk. What should I do? Student affairs, international studies, student affairs, international studies. And he would like ask me all these questions and I'd be like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And I was just totally using the mind, like, here's what's good about student affairs, here's what's good about international studies, here's what's good about this, here's what's good about this. I never got a clear signal. Like, I remember like I kept putting dates on the calendar. Like they extend invitations, but if you don't accept the invitations by a certain time, I mean, they give them to someone else, especially when they're offering you funding to pay you to go to school. So I don't know. Like, I just had to make a choice. And I just made a choice, not because it felt right. So that's what I believed. I believed I eventually had to make a choice. That's not true. That's not true with emotional authority. And this has been the most important thing that I've learned, is that if it's I don't know, usually there's a third option that you are not seeing that is correct for you. Or it's not the right time to make a decision. Like if I would have just waited maybe a year or something like that, I may have gotten clear. It's possible that no matter what I did, I was meant to die or have a near-death experience that year. And I could have had that experience in the United States, and then I could have chosen a grad program that matched like who I am now, like a psychology program or metaphysics or something else different. But that isn't what happened. So anyway, so like for me, that's like the greatest learning, because for me, even coming to the understanding, like without human design, I wouldn't have come to the understanding or knowing that like not making a choice is a choice. And I have to remind myself of that like every day. Like sometimes I go to the store trying to buy a specific thing and I'll sit and I'll like hold the items and it's like, do I want this or this or this or this? And like, I will be like, I want to make a choice because I just want to solve this. Like, I just want to cross it off the list. But like, it's like, I don't know. So finally I've learned to just leave. And it's like, if it's really meant to be, like the options will still be here later and you can make a choice at another time. And so that's been like really big for me. And with all kinds of different things in life. And I just keep practicing like every day with my emotional authority and combining it with the sacral response. And yeah, like I've found so much value in going through the deconditioning process. And I just wanted to talk about it in an uncut way today because there's so much in human design and there's so much good. But the main things that will change your life are following your strategy and authority. And if you put in the work, like I hate to use the word work, it's not really that hard of work. It's actually really enjoyable because your life improves so rapidly when you do it. But if you actually do it, you may avoid death, like me, or certainly avoid suffering. You'll avoid a lot of stress. Your life will become simpler. It will become a life of greater ease. And I just want the best for all of you. That's the reason why I do YouTube. I also am a psychic, which is what I was gonna say is like, my path may have been to become a psychic and to do this spiritual work. So the reason I wasn't getting a clear signal as to international studies or student affairs is because neither was the correct path, and either path was going to come to a dramatic end in like 9 to 12 months. So I was getting, I don't know. But my logical mind could not fathom that there was this totally third thing that was going to emerge. And I became a psychic within a year of waking up from my coma. So it was like pretty quick. So here I am today as Maya Joy, new person. Anyway, it's a joy to make these videos. Thank you guys for watching. Please, please, please try following your strategy and authority. I truly believe it will give you a better life. And I want you all to have the best Earth experience that you possibly can. It can be hard down here on Earth, but it's a little bit easier if you follow your design. Thank you for watching. Many blessings and namaste. Bye. Have a good weekend.